My sister raised a hammer above my daughter's brand new bike and brought it crashing down. Once, twice, 3 times. My 7-year-old stood frozen, watching her joy get obliterated into twisted metal and scattered dreams. That's when my sister realized she had just made one of the biggest mistakes of her life. My name is Victoria Hartwell. I'm 34 years old, and I'm about to tell you how one moment of blind rage cost my sister everything she ever cared about. Her husband, her child, her reputation, all because she couldn't control her jealousy long enough to ask a simple question. Let me paint you the picture of how a family can shatter in the span of 3 hammer strikes. It was one of those perfect spring afternoons where everything feels possible. The kind of day that tricks you into believing the world might actually be a good place. My 7-year-old daughter Lily was practically vibrating with excitement, bouncing from foot to foot as she waited for her grandmother and aunt to arrive. She couldn't wait to show them her new bicycle, bright purple with silver streamers that caught the sunlight like tiny ribbons of joy. I should have seen it coming. I should have remembered that in my family, joy was always borrowed time. The moment my sister Melissa stepped out of her car, I knew something was wrong. Her face had that familiar twist to it, the one I'd learned to read before I could even tie my shoes. That look that said someone was about to pay for her bad mood. My mother Rebecca followed behind her, already wearing her trademark expression of preemptive disappointment. These were the faces of my childhood, the ones that had taught me that happiness was something to hide, not celebrate. But Lily didn't know that yet. She grabbed their hands, tugging them toward the driveway with pure, innocent excitement. "Look at my new bike. Isn't it beautiful?" Her voice was music, the kind that makes your heart swell and break at the same time. She pointed out every detail, the way the paint shimmered, how the bell made the perfect sound, the little basket perfect for carrying treasures. Melissa stood there like a statue, staring at the bike as if it had committed a personal offense against her. The silence stretched until even the birds seemed to hold their breath. Then she spoke, her voice so calm it sent ice through my veins. "Let me show you what I think about this." She walked into my house without permission, came back out carrying a hammer from my toolbox. A hammer. I watched her raise it above her head, watched it arc through the afternoon light, watched it crash into the frame of my daughter's bike with a sound like the world ending. Lily's hands flew to her mouth. Her eyes went wide with shock and confusion. This was the moment my baby learned that adults could destroy things just for the sake of destroying them. That joy could be stolen with 3 brutal swings of a hammer. The wheel buckled. The paint scattered in chips across the concrete. The streamers hung limp and torn. And through it all, Melissa's face never changed. She looked satisfied, like she'd just solved a complicated problem. "That should be a lesson for her," she said, looking directly at my daughter. "A lesson? What lesson? That happiness was fragile? That cruelty could come from family? That the people supposed to protect you might be the ones who hurt you most?" My mother nodded her approval. Actually nodded. "You shouldn't have bought it for her," she said to me, as if this massacre was somehow my fault. As if I had forced Melissa to become a destroyer of children's dreams. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't grab the hammer and return the favor. Instead, I stood there in that moment of crystal clarity and smiled. Because sometimes when people show you exactly who they are, the kindest thing you can do is believe them. "I'm going to say this once," I said, my voice so level it surprised even me. "That bike wasn't for Lily." The words hung in the air like smoke. I watched their faces change, watched confusion creep into their certainty. "It was for Emma. Emma, Melissa's daughter. My niece." The silence that followed was different. Heavier. Loaded with the weight of a mistake that couldn't be taken back. But this story didn't start with a hammer. It started 28 years earlier, in a house where everything was always my fault. Melissa came into the world screaming, and I swear she never stopped. The difference was that when most children scream, parents teach them boundaries. When Melissa screamed, my parents taught me to walk on eggshells. Every tantrum became my responsibility. Every broken toy, every lost game, every moment of her unhappiness somehow traced back to something I had done or failed to do. "Don't Upset Your Sister" became the soundtrack of my childhood, which was almost funny, considering Melissa could be upset by the color of the sky if it didn't match her mood. I learned to make myself smaller, quieter, less. I learned that my job wasn't to be happy. It was to keep her from being unhappy. When I was 12, I saved up 3 months of allowance to buy her a necklace for her birthday. It was cheap but pretty, with a little blue pendant that caught the light. I thought I was being the perfect big sister. She took one look at it, shrieked that she wanted pink, and snapped the chain in half. My mother's response? "You know she prefers pink. Why would you choose blue?" That was the lesson I learned that day. In my family, the victim was always wrong. Fast forward 20 years, and some patterns never change. I'd worked my way through law school, built a career, created a life that was stable and comfortable. Successful enough that I often helped my family financially, covering bills, groceries, emergencies. Because despite everything, I still believed that family meant something. But here's the truth about helping people who resent you. No matter what you give, it's never enough. When I said yes to necessities, I was taking on my responsibility. When I said no to luxuries, I was selfish and showing off. I couldn't win because winning was never the point. 3 weeks before the bike incident, Emma and Lily were playing in our backyard. Emma had been riding her bike, an older model that had seen better days, when something in the mechanism failed. Chain slipped, pedal broke. I'm not sure exactly what happened. But I heard Emma crying and found her sitting next to her broken bike, tears streaming down her face. Lily, being 7 and thinking she could fix anything, had been trying to help. She was poking at the broken parts, saying, "I can fix it. I can fix it," in that confident way children have before the world teaches them otherwise. Of course, the moment Melissa saw the scene, she immediately pointed at my daughter. "She broke it. Your kid broke Emma's bike." The accusation came so fast and so certain, you'd think she'd witnessed Lily take a sledgehammer to the thing. My mother backed her up instantly. "Victoria, you need to take responsibility. Children have to learn that actions have consequences." The irony of her talking about consequences while enabling Melissa's behavior wasn't lost on me. I didn't argue. I'd learned long ago that arguing with their version of reality was like trying to hold water in a sieve. Instead, I said we'd take the bike home and my husband James could look at it. Sometimes you have to choose your battles carefully. That evening, James examined the bike in our garage. He's good with mechanical things, patient and thorough. After 20 minutes of checking every component, he looked up at me with that expression mechanics get when they find something dangerous. "This wasn't Lily," he said. "This is a manufacturing defect. Look at this part here. It was waiting to fail." If Emma had been going downhill when this happened, or crossing a street, he didn't need to finish the sentence. The bike hadn't been broken by my daughter. It had been broken by shoddy manufacturing, and it could have seriously hurt my niece. That's when I got angry. Not the hot, explosive anger that makes you do stupid things. The cold, focused anger that makes you effective. I picked up the phone and called the manufacturer. I explained the situation in precise detail, using every legal term I'd learned in law school. I might have mentioned words like liability and child safety and potential lawsuit. Funny how quickly companies start listening when you speak their language. Within 24 hours, I had an email offering not just a replacement, but an upgrade to the exact model Emma had been begging for. The premium bike with all the features she'd been dreaming about. The one that cost 3 times what her parents could afford. I decided to keep it a surprise. I imagined Emma's face when she saw the bike of her dreams waiting for her. I imagined Melissa realizing that her accusations against Lily had been wrong, that I'd actually gone above and beyond for her daughter. For one naive moment, I thought this might be the thing that finally healed the wounds between us. The bike arrived on a Thursday, bright red with chrome details, everything a little girl could want. I put it in our garage and planned to bring it over the weekend when both families could be together. I wanted it to be special, but Friday night Melissa called. Her voice had that edge that meant someone was about to get blamed for something. "Emma keeps asking about her bike," she said. "When are you going to replace it? It's been a week." I almost told her then, almost spoiled the surprise. Instead I said, "This weekend. I promise." "It better be decent," she said. "Not some cheap replacement. Emma deserves better after what your daughter did to her." I bit my tongue. Again, always again, I invited Melissa over. That's when everything went wrong. In Melissa's mind, the story was simple and infuriating. Her daughter had no bike because of my daughter's carelessness. Meanwhile, my daughter had gotten a shiny new bike as a reward. It looked like favoritism, like I was rubbing her face in her own inability to provide for Emma. She didn't ask questions. She didn't wait for explanations. She just saw what she expected to see and let 34 years of resentment finally explode. The hammer came down 3 times. Each strike was deliberate, purposeful, designed for maximum destruction. This wasn't a moment of rage. It was a calculated act of cruelty performed in front of a 7-year-old child. "That should be a lesson for her," she said, as if teaching my daughter that joy could be destroyed on a whim was somehow educational. My mother's support came immediately. "You shouldn't have bought it for her." Because in their minds, the real crime wasn't destroying a child's happiness. It was that I had the audacity to create that happiness in the first place. I stood there watching metal bend and paint scatter, and something inside me finally snapped into place. Not broke, snapped into alignment, like a bone setting after being crooked for years. That's when I smiled and delivered the words that changed everything. That bike wasn't for Lily. It was for Emma. The silence that followed was the sound of a worldview collapsing. I watched the color drain from their faces as reality rearranged itself around them. The confident cruelty faded, replaced by the dawning horror of a mistake that couldn't be undone. "You're lying," Melissa said, but her voice had lost its certainty. "The manufacturer sent emails, documentation, everything," I said. "Would you like me to read them aloud in the front yard? Or would you prefer I just forward them to you?" That landed like a physical blow. I could see her mind racing, trying to find a way to make this my fault somehow. Trying to rewrite the story so she was still the victim and I was still the villain. "You expect me to believe you'd do something like that for my kid?" she asked. "No," I said. "I expect you to regret what you just did." The truth was settling over the scene like dust after an explosion. My mother tried to play damage control. "Victoria, there's no need to humiliate your sister. You can fix this. File an insurance claim. Call it a misunderstanding." The part where a grown woman destroyed a 7-year-old's joy with a hammer, I said. "Do we classify that under a misunderstanding or teaching moment?" Melissa folded her arms so tight her knuckles went white. "It was just a moment. People have moments. Kitchen crying is a moment," I said. This was a demolition project. The quiet that followed had weight to it. You could feel the shift in the air, the way power moves from one person to another when truth finally surfaces. "Leave," I said. They stared at me like I'd announced I was moving to another planet. My mother's hand fluttered up to her throat. "Don't be ridiculous. We're family." "That word doesn't mean what you think it means," I said. For the first time in my adult life, I watched them struggle to find their footing. The old patterns weren't working. The familiar script had been torn up. James appeared on our porch, wiping his hands on a towel. He'd been inside when the destruction happened, but he could read the scene like a crime investigator. "Time to go," he said to both of them. Not angry, not dramatic, just final. "You can't do this," Melissa said, desperation creeping into her voice. "We're your family. We help each other." "You brought a hammer to my child's happiness," I said. "Help has left the building." They left that day, but they didn't go quietly. The phone calls started within hours. First pleading, then demanding, then threatening. Because you see, I hadn't just cut them out emotionally. I'd cut them off financially. While they'd been standing in my driveway processing their mistake, I'd been making decisions. Every utility bill I'd been paying, every streaming service, every grocery run I'd been covering. I removed my card from all of it. Not out of spite, but out of clarity. If this was how they treated my child when they thought I was helping their child, then my help was clearly not welcome. The desperate messages started immediately. "We got a notice. Your card was removed. Why would you do this? Add it back." Followed quickly by, "What are you playing at? This is petty. Fix this right now." Funny how fast people go from righteous to begging when the money stops flowing. I didn't answer the calls. I didn't engage with the texts. I just sat in my kitchen that night, listening to Lily laugh at a cartoon while James made her favorite mac and cheese, and felt something I hadn't experienced in years: peace. But they weren't finished with me. Not by a long shot. When the direct approach didn't work, they tried something more insidious. They rewrote history. The story that began circulating through our extended family was a masterpiece of manipulation. Emma's bike broke while playing with Lily. Lily clearly broke it. I refused to take responsibility or replace it. Then I cut off their financial support out of pure spite. No mention of the hammer. No mention of the destroyed surprise. No mention of the fact that a grown woman had committed an act of vandalism in front of a child to teach her a lesson. Just poor Melissa and Emma, victims of selfish Catherine's cold heart. The family chat exploded with sympathy for them. Relatives who hadn't spoken to me in months suddenly had opinions about my character. That's so cruel of Catherine. Poor Emma doesn't have a bike because of this. Little thumbs up emojis validating their version of reality. I could have ignored it, should have ignored it. But when I saw my daughter being painted as a spoiled brat who got rewarded after breaking someone else's property, something in me snapped. That's when I remembered the security camera. You know those doorbell cameras you install because you're paranoid about package thieves? Sometimes they capture more than you bargained for. And there it was, crystal clear footage of the entire incident. Melissa walking to my house, emerging with a hammer, my mother's voice in the background blaming me for buying the bike. The whole ugly symphony preserved in high definition. I downloaded the video, trimmed nothing, and posted it directly into that family group chat. No commentary, no explanation, just the truth in living color. Followed by one sentence. For the record, that bike was Emma's surprise gift. Melissa destroyed it herself. This is why Emma doesn't have a bike. Then I put my phone down and waited. The chat exploded like a bomb in a library. Cousins typing in all caps. Aunts demanding explanations. People who had quietly supported the revised version suddenly had to confront reality wearing sweatpants and holding a hammer. But the real earthquake happened when Emma's father saw that video. Robert had always been the quiet one in family gatherings, the guy who nodded along and kept his opinions to himself. I'd written him off as another enabler, someone who'd chosen the path of least resistance. I was wrong. He called me that evening. "Is it real?" he asked, his voice flat and tired. "Yes," I said. "It's real." A long pause. Then, "Thank you." He told me that him and Melissa had been having issues, and her constant outburst of rage was something he could no longer endure. Within 1 month, he'd filed for divorce and sole custody of Emma. The video became evidence in family court. A judge watched a grown woman destroy a child's gift with a hammer and made some very clear decisions about who should be raising a 6-year-old girl. The calls from Melissa and my mother became frantic after that. "You didn't have to post it. You're tearing this family apart. Think of your niece." As if I hadn't been thinking of Emma the entire time. As if I hadn't fought a manufacturer to get her the bike of her dreams, only to watch it destroyed in my driveway. I stopped answering their calls. The woman who had spent 34 years managing their emotions and absorbing their blame was done. Not angry anymore, just finished. 6 months later, Emma lives with her father in a small apartment across town. She has the red bike now. Robert drove to the manufacturer's warehouse and picked up the replacement himself. She sends me pictures sometimes, her smiling face bright with the joy that Melissa tried to destroy with a hammer. Melissa lives alone in the house she can no longer afford without my financial support. She's working 2 part-time jobs and learning what consequences actually look like. My mother calls occasionally, still trying to guilt me into forgiveness, still insisting that family should overlook anything. But here's what they never understood. Family isn't a free pass to be cruel. It's not a shield you hide behind when you want to avoid accountability. Real family protects each other's joy, especially when that joy belongs to a child. I drew a line that day in my driveway. Maybe some people think I went too far. Others might think I didn't go far enough. The truth is, I don't care anymore what other people think. My daughter sleeps safely in her bed, secure in the knowledge that her mother will protect her from anyone who tries to destroy her happiness. Even if that person shares our blood. The purple bike is long gone, replaced by a blue one with racing stripes that Lily picked out herself. Sometimes I catch her looking at it with that same pure joy she had that Saturday afternoon, before she learned that adults could be cruel for no reason. The innocence is gone, but the joy remains. And that, I think, is the real victory. Some battles are worth fighting, even when they cost you everything you thought was family. Some lines are worth drawing, even when crossing them changes everything forever. And sometimes the only way to protect the people you love is to stop protecting the people who hurt them. The hammer fell 3 times that day, but I'm not the one who picked it up. What would you have done? Tell me in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that will make you question everything you thought you knew about family, loyalty, and the price of standing up for what's right.